there's a difference between being nice and being kind in a relationship. There's a difference between uh, coming from fear in your relationships versus coming from love. And oftentimes, being nice is a way in which we are hiding and creating inauthenticity and fragility in the relationships in our life. And if we are only looking at the actions of what being nice looks like, we can very much confuse it with being kind. And we might say, well, I'm just a nice person and I don't want to have to change and people should accept me the way that I am. Uh, and I totally hear that, but there may be a way in which you're giving away your power that is actually creating inauthentic relationships where people ghost or don't respect you, or you end up feeling like a doormat, or you feel like you're giving, 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 and not receiving anything in return. So this is for anybody that can relate to that. And uh, what I'm also going to do, if you stick around to the end, is I'm actually going to give you a maneuver. I'm going to help create a maneuver that you can make inside of your mind and your way of being that will begin to let go of this disempowering stance and shift into one that has much more confidence and allows you to feel more integrated and show up authentically in your relationships. So, uh, just going to check the comments here. Okay, beautiful. Yes, and I can absolutely speak up. So if anybody is wants me to speak up, just let me know. I'm using a new mic today, so I'm going to see how this works, and I'll listen to it back later to decide if we need to change things around. So, all right. So why does being nice lead to rejection? So the type of nice that I'm speaking to is the type of behavior that is actually a reaction that's coming from a deep fear of being rejected versus showing up in a relationship with a sober, clear, intentional choice that is coming from your heart. And this distinction is critical that we make it here so that we're not categorizing being nice from simply the behaviors that you're doing in the relationship, but we're taking into account where the the behaviors are specifically coming from. What are the motivations behind the behaviors themselves? Because this is where it gets slippery. So being nice is often rooted and it's a cover for feeling afraid in your relationships. It's often a reaction that stems from a fear of being rejected. So the thought might be, I'll be nice so that I don't have to experience rejection. I'll be nice so that I'm not giving this person a reason to push back and reject me and create distance in the relationship. So we're holding rejection as fear inside of our bodies. And what ironically ends up happening is when people are rejecting us, if we're being nice, they're not really rejecting our behaviors, they're rejecting the way of being in which those behaviors are coming from. So they're rejecting the frequency in which we're showing up into the relationship. It feels inauthentic, it feels unclear, it might even feel manipulative to them. So the second reason is being nice is often a substitute for authenticity. Being nice is a maneuver that stops people from coming into true contact with who you are. People want to be in relationship with real people. They want to feel one's backbone because it actually allows them to know where they stand in relationship with you. Being nice, I've often referred to it as almost being like a cardboard cutout that kind of shifts angles depending on how we're looking at it. And so we oftentimes don't really know what's behind being nice, whether the person really feels that way or whether they're being deceptive in some manner. Being nice is often performative. So it can be a sneaky form of impression management. And what people are rejecting then is they're rejecting the performance. They're not necessarily rejecting us, they're rejecting the veneer that we're putting on by being nice because we're oftentimes rejecting our own authenticity. That said, going into the next reason, being nice is often a rejection or a withhold of what you really want. Perhaps you're not saying your desires in the relationship. Perhaps you're suppressing your feelings because you're afraid of how you might be seen if you were to show up authentically and rock the boat a bit. We're saying no to our truth, in other words. Being nice is often motivated by what we think we should do rather than what we want to do. So I'm acting this way and I'm using these behaviors because I think this is what I should do because I'm afraid of what people might think if I don't do this. So therefore, it's an inherently disempowered stance because the authority of how we show up is not placed inside of us, it's placed outside of us in some external arbitrary authority. This is what people are rejecting as well. People are rejecting the disempowered stance. Moving on to the next reason, being nice is not self-honoring. In fact, we're already rejecting some aspect of ourselves when we are being nice. And then what happens is other people just follow suit. They follow our lead. We reject ourselves internally. And so we bring a rejection of self to our interactions. And then what happens? The world and people mirror what's already happening as an internal dynamic within us. So I'm going to pause right here for a moment, and I'm just curious how this is landing with people. And mic is low, but we can hear you clearly. Just lower the audio. Okay. A little louder, please. Yes, thank you for this. There might be a way that I can turn my mic up. So can everybody still hear me? I'm going to go into the settings really quick and see if I can take the mic up right now. Let's see. Okay. All right, let me know how that sounds. I just turned the volume up, the mic sound. Maybe the same? Okay. Yes, as in it's the same, or it's a little bit louder. And I can do my best to speak up. Is there any questions regarding the content so far? It's still the same. Okay. Okay. Can you hear me, or are you straining to hear me? And I might just have to go through this as a, it's a bit louder. Okay, beautiful. Yeah, I might have to just go through this again at some point, and I will create another video with the sound being very clear. So if you miss any of it this pass around, don't worry. There will be some content that comes out later that summarizes this. So is this, aside from the sound issues, how is this landing on your side currently? Are there any questions regarding this? Is it making sense? Is there anything that you would like me to touch on that would open up any of these points at this point? I'm seeing here by Shantae, the etymology of the word nice means to be ignorant, to not know. Thank you. I did not know that. I love it. Okay, great. So I'm going to keep moving. We're going to move on to the next piece as well. And by the way, I'd love for you to just try this on as a thought experiment. What do you think is the opposite of being nice? What is the first response that comes to your mind when you say, okay, if I'm not to be nice, then I'm to be what? And feel free to type your answer into the comment here. And I've got a question here. Can people take advantage of you, of being nice? Yes, they can. They can. And oftentimes it's because we're, in many ways, taking advantage of ourselves by being nice. There's a way in which we are typically creating covert contracts. And so we're giving with the expectation of receiving in a way that is often unspoken, rather than giving from a place of just true generosity. Okay, so here's some of the answers we've got. We've got the opposite of being nice is rude, aggressive, mean, rude. Great. Yeah, thank you. Horrible. Okay, beautiful. So here's what I'm going to say. I would like to offer you that the opposite of being nice is not actually being mean, but rather it's being kind. That the opposite of being nice is not being mean, but actually being kind. And it's really important, and you'll see why this distinction matters here in a moment. Because what I actually think is that being mean comes from a very similar energy of being afraid. So being nice is one reaction to feeling fear inside of our system about how others might perceive us. And when we're being mean, there's actually also, it's plugged into the same fuel source of fear as well. Um, and I'll speak more about that in just one moment. So people aren't rejecting the nice actions, they're rejecting the motivation behind the actions. They are rejecting the way of being that this person who's being nice is occupying. Therefore, it makes it very difficult to respect. Being nice often evokes suspicion about your ulterior motives. Why? Because being nice is often creating covert contracts with people. I'll do this for you, but then I'm expecting you to do something for me. I'm going to be nice and I'm going to offer all of this generosity so that you don't break up with me, so that you don't distance yourself, so that you don't tell me the truth, which might hurt me. I'm going to do these things to insulate, in some ways, the relationship from truth, from feeling true feelings, and from speaking truth. Being nice also shuts down honest relational communication to this point. When we honor harmony over truth, we actually build a brittle relationship with those around us because we don't create a territory for authentic communication to occur, because that could rock the boat. And then lastly here, being nice is often the antithesis to creating tension. Being nice is the releasing of tension in the relationship. And tension is actually where attraction is born. And so if we're constantly trying to release tension with someone that we're on a date with, or someone that we're in a relationship with, or in a situation, we limit the relationship's capacity to build tension and therefore attraction and respect, and to feel, again, like both people are coming into contact with each other's true self. All right, so what is the solution here? If you find yourself identifying with this, and some of this content can be really triggering, because if you've noticed that you identify as being a nice person, being a nice woman, a nice man, that you might say, well, I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be an asshole. And I really care about showing up for people, and I care about, and I really am identified with being that type of person. But you're gonna have a tough time in a relationship. And so, again, here's why I'm saying the opposite of being nice is actually not being mean, it's being kind. And the reason why is because being kind is something that comes from your heart. Being kind is an expansion of your heart, where being nice often feels like a compromise that creates a contraction within your body. Being kind is actually exposing, while being nice is hiding. Being kind comes from love, and being kind is also about being kind to oneself. It means honoring your boundaries. It means honoring your truth. It means speaking what you want, speaking what your desires are. That's actually a contribution to the relationship. It's being kind to the relationship. It's nurturing the relationship by allowing truth to be present. Being kind does not create covert contracts. Being kind is simply giving from a place of not actually expecting anything in return. The act of giving is the reward, rather than the giving because I'm trying to create some type of performative impression management. So being kind doesn't have any strings attached. Being kind is detached. Being kind is a way of being that actually can't be taken advantage of, because we're not giving from a place of lack or from a place of fear, hoping to get something back. Being kind can say no. Being nice can't. Being kind is often motivated by a genuine desire to be that way, where being nice is, again, often motivated by what we think we should and how we should act in the relationship because we're afraid. Now, what can often happen in this, when somebody is recovering from being nice, is they will make the trek through uh, this kind of darker side of maybe being mean or being more assertive or being a little bit more rough around the edges. And I want to say that the being mean is a transition point. Then it's not the opposite, but it's a transition point. And here's we actually see this show up in literature, like some of the books out there, like Why Men Love Bitches. That's a very popular book that is for women who have had the experience of feeling like they're a doormat in relationships. And if they would embody more of their inner bitch, then they would be more attractive to men. And oftentimes the pendulum has to swing that direction so that the woman or the man can start to get in touch with their dark side. They can start to get in touch with their no. They can start to get in touch with how their authenticity and the non-relational aspects of themselves are actually a contribution to the relationship, paradoxically. The more that I honor myself, the more that I honor the relationship, which is something that the person who's stuck in feeling like a doormat, feeling nice, is very hard for them to get. But as they move into this place of allowing themselves to show up a little bit more rough around the edges, more assertive, fully embodying their no, here's what ends up happening. They start to restore choice to their actions. Because if I'm being nice, if I'm giving you something because there's no other option that I have on the menu, then it's not coming from a choice. It's not actually coming from true generosity. It's coming from fear, and it's coming from a place of I'm doing this, I'm being this way because I don't have any other option. But if I can embody my dark side, if I can embody the place within me that is not upset, that is not afraid of upsetting you, what ultimately happens then is when I choose to be kind, when I choose to give, it is coming from a much more clear, sober perspective that is based in freedom. And the person on the receiving end feels it because they know that you can say no. They know that you can draw boundaries if you need to. Yet you're choosing to be kind, which then ups the self-respect, it ups the respect in the relationship, it ups the intimacy level as well, and allows your partner to feel like they can trust you and that they can be safe with you. One of them, so I'm going to go into the maneuver now of how you can begin to unlock this way of being more free in your relationships, not locked into being nice, more fully and completely. And this is when I'm working with my clients, this is often an invitation for them. And I actually kind of back this up with just a little bit of context. What seems to be a pattern in some of the relationships with the clients that I work with, if they are occupying the polarity of being the nice one, and maybe they've been with a narcissist, maybe they've been with somebody who has taken advantage of them in some way, or maybe they're just in relationship with somebody who just occupies the polarity of being a bit more selfish, they can end up feeling held hostage in the relationship by the other person seeing them as a bad person. And they can end up withholding their truth. They can end up having a really hard time breaking up with that person. They can end up having a really hard time asserting their needs because the place that they are unwilling to go within themselves is move into this place of being seen as a selfish human being or somebody that is not relational, or being seen as the bad guy or the bad woman. So when you can give yourself permission to experiment with actually trusting that part of your development might actually be showing up as the bad guy or the bad girl, and even with the people that you love, that they may very well see you as this selfish human being who's only looking out for themselves. If you can allow yourself to occupy that space and be seen that way, you will have the capacity to set yourself free in the relationship. But it requires you to stop tiptoeing around trying to avoid that polarity and to step into it fully and allow yourself to be fully selfish, and allow yourself to be able to say no and to do what's best for you. Because from that place, when you have that kind of freedom, whoever you're in relationship with actually doesn't have power over you anymore, because they're seeing you in a certain way that you don't want to be seen. I see this dynamic happen oftentimes with uh, people that are people pleasers stuck in relationship with someone who might be an abusive narcissist. Is the narcissist gives guilt, and they see the other person through a guilty lens, and they pass all the guilt over to them, and that people pleaser feels like they're in a hole trying to crawl out of the guilt, and they feel like they're the bad one in some way. um, and when you can actually allow yourself to be the bad one, uh, the other person has no power over you at that point. So you must be willing to go to the place that you don't want to go within yourself to find your power, to find your freedom. And that's what integration is integrating our shadow. Because every person who's stuck in this nice guy or nice girl role where you're feeling like a doormat or you're feeling taken advantage of, the shadow that you're not owning is that you're actually selfish. And that's okay. We all are. In fact, we need to be selfish, context dependent. We need to be able to have the flexibility to be selfish in order to actually create powerful, long lasting relationships and advocate for ourselves in a way that allows us to make more money and that allows us to be able to move in the direction of the lifestyle we want, the kind of partner we want, the kind of work that we want. So I would love to hear if there's any questions. I'm going to go ahead and come back to this and scroll through and see if there's anything that is worth me answering here that would be helpful. Hi, Gina. To me, people pleasing the way I lived the first 30 years of my life, in other words, stems ultimately from a lack of confidence. Great. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I think a lot of people can relate. Being nice is a defense against people getting to know the real you. Mind blown. Wow, beautiful. Thanks for echoing that, Chanel. And we are more likely to be taken advantage of. Kindness is not a weakness. I would argue that kindness is actually one of the most powerful stances that you can take. Um, I think that I just watched the movie Gandhi last night, and I've been also reading uh, the book Gandhi the Man, and I think that man was incredibly kind, but he was fierce, and he was true, and he stood for something. Um, you can stand for being kind in your relationship. You can stand for kindness in the the relational dynamic that you have with somebody that you love, and you can fight for kindness. You can call people out when they're not kind, when you hold yourself to that value. And so kindness doesn't look like laying down and letting people take advantage of you. Kindness is standing for what's true and for what's good and for a quality of communication that ultimately builds love and presence and intimacy. And I'd love to, if there's another opinion on that and you guys think that that doesn't make sense, let me know. But this is, I believe that kindness is what we get access to when we are fully integrated, because we can then come from a place of generosity and we can come from a place of already having in our lives, and we can actually give to people around us without expecting anything in return. And that doesn't mean we're just giving, and not honoring ourselves. We're giving within the limits that allow us to still maintain uh, a sense of self-respect and move through life with dignity. And I do believe that kindness it comes from being genuine as well. Yes, um, being nice often scares people. Yes, I agree. And then I hear Monica, what are some of the deep beliefs of that person, of someone who isn't nice? What are the deep beliefs? Well, I'll say this. Some of the beliefs that being nice is built on top of is that being nice often comes from the thought that I need to give and I need to do in order to be loved. I can't actually be myself in order to be loved. I have to put on some type of uh, mask or reject an aspect of myself in order to belong and to be wanted. And so, uh, being kind would have a different set of beliefs. One in which, I mean, and I would actually just throw that over to you. I mean, just to brainstorm this a little bit, what is it that you think someone who's kind, who's genuinely able to give from a place of non-attachment, what might they believe about life? Might they believe about themselves in order to do that? And then Carlos, it's sad that people use everything against you. You're doomed if you do, and you're doomed if you don't. There's no winning. Um, I'm sorry that it sounds like you're going through a hard time and have had some interesting situation in relationship that has been painful. Um, yeah, I don't quite understand the doomed if you do and doomed if you don't. I'm not sure what the doing and the don't doing are related to. And then Chanel asks, let's see here. I can put this on screen. Star comment. Can I do that? Interesting. Oh, there we go. I just click on it. I can see we're being nice too. Oh, wait, I can see we're being way too nice and considerate because that's how I am. But often people don't act in kind and then not nice me comes out. But I wouldn't be that way if people were decent. Yeah, is that a question? I'm curious if there's a specific question around that. I hear what you're speaking to, and there's a lot to unpack here. I'm wondering, Chanel, if you want to ask the question in a more direct way, which might actually bring some more clarity. Yes, I think Leslie says I think you can be taken advantage of. You're too nice. Agreed. Thank you, Monica. Yeah, and Shantae, this is a great statement right here. Fortunately, it doesn't have to take being a bitch to be honoring of oneself and forego unhealthy levels of compromise. Yes, true. And I will say that we can call it whatever we want to call it. Um, that is in often a transitionary step where one can start to find some of the power. I mean, it's almost like the thing that comes to mind is what ends up happening with 2 year olds when a child hits a certain level of mental development where they start to differentiate themselves from their parents. There's a type of psychological birth that begins to happen where they call it the terrible twos, where the child is saying no to everything. Even the things that they want, they're just saying no, 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 because what they're actually doing from a psychological level is they're saying that's not me, that's not me, that's not me, and they're carving out who they are. They're extracting themselves from merging with the world and from mom and turning into their own identity. And saying no is a step in being able to do that. And I think that what's ironic about that is in relationship later in life, there's the same thing is happening is where when we can say no to someone that we really love and that we might be afraid of losing, we are creating powerful sovereignty. We're creating more balance within ourselves. We're learning to honor ourselves while being in relationship, which can be really challenging for a lot of people. All right. Once said Mr. O something like, "Yeah, if you never say no, you never fully stand on your yes." Beautiful. Yep. Yes, and being nice stems from childhood trauma for me. Leslie, thank you for saying that. And I would say that being nice stems from trauma for almost everybody. If it is a pattern of behavior that continues to denigrate your relationships. So you're not alone in that. What is the best way to love a man without letting him think he has you? Um, that's a deep question, and I will say that I think we're speaking to that in this. I would want you to have yourself before anybody has you. And so the best way to love a man without him thinking that he has you is first for you to have you and to have your own back in a way that is first and foremost, that you have your own back in a primary way. You are your own best ally. You are looking out for you. You know where your boundaries are. You know what you're a clear yes to and what you're a clear no to in relationship. And when that occurs, this concern about whether or not he has you and whether he identifies that way will actually just, my imagination is it will disintegrate. It will be a non-issue. And Erky Maria, now I know the problem with me. I'm too nice. I should be kind and start to say no. Beautiful realization. Yep. This speaks to me so much today. My narc really tried to make me feel guilty earlier for wanting to follow my dreams, which have turned out to be the opposite from his life goal. Thank you for sharing, Lisa. Being nice can be a result of abandonment issues. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. And then Leslie, you have to be strong enough in who you are to risk rejection. Otherwise, you are living your life based on other people's opinions of you. So true. So true. And then Mr. John Cox, thank you for the comment, brother. Love that you're loving this. And then here's a question from Gina. Let's see. Question: what are the outcome of a relationship between two nice people? Not my situation as I'm single, but I am curious. Yeah, so two nice people can oftentimes create a codependent relationship where there is a way in which both are hiding and both are hiding from themselves and they're also both hiding from the world. And so there can be this overleaning that happens in the relationship where it becomes very difficult for either one of them to break up. And both people can end up feeling like they're losing themselves. And these relationships can last a very long time. They might just feel very unhealthy, and the outside world gets a bit smaller and smaller. Um, that would be my take on it. Um, at the same time too, I can imagine that as both people are doing their work and becoming more aware of how they're showing up and understanding the energy they're tapping into and moving from that continuum of nice to kind, I think that the relationship can end up being incredibly life-giving and generous with a real focus and dedication to this third entity of the relationship. I don't think it's without hope that that can happen between two people that have this orientation. Okay, if you used to be a people pleaser, how do you learn to bring the other side out? Yeah, by practicing being in your no, Yvonne. Practicing saying no, practicing seeing that your no is actually a contribution to the relationship. And there's this belief that if you're to honor yourself, somehow you're not being relational. If you're to speak your truth and speak your feelings and say and not compromise yourself in relationship, that somehow the people in your life would walk away. And oftentimes, quite the opposite is true with other healthy individuals, is that the more you're able to honor yourself, the more permission you give other people to honor themselves while in connection with you. So notice that if we look at this from a frequency perspective, we look at this as an inner stance, a healthy... Hold on one second. All right. Thanks for your patience there. I had somebody coming by, I think, wanting to sell me solar. So practicing being in your no, practicing seeing being authentically you as a contribution to the relationship, realizing that healthy people want to know where you stand. They want to know how you really feel. Uh, they want to feel the tension of the relationship. The relationship is a container for growth, and if we're not really playing full out and bringing our full authentic selves to the table, we're limiting the growth capacity of both people. All right, exactly. I'm in such a relationship where we are both too nice. It's starting to lack some depth. Yeah, Leslie, thank you for saying that. Great point and wonderful insight. All right, and then Carlos says, what I meant to say by you doom if you do and doom if you don't is that there's really no way of being. You're either nice or bad. You either have good feelings or bad feelings. So, Carlos, I hear you, man. And, this is, uh, there's some, just notice there's some black and white thinking in this statement of yours. And it's not uncommon. And this is how we can get locked up. But there are infinite ways of being, and part of uh, standing more in our truth is learning to find those the gray area, the gray area in between those, or even outside of that paradigm completely, that actually allows you to create a different result in your life. Um, and if any of you watching this are wanting some actual help or wanting to have a conversation about this more fully, this is definitely a piece that I would say is maybe about 30 to 40% of the work that I do with people. A lot of folks that have people pleasing tendencies or anxious attachment that then end up coming out in performance anxiety or a workaholism or getting burnt out or feeling like they're exhausted in relationships. This is the kind of work that I love doing with people because through conversation, we can help you start to illuminate these different choices that are actually available that you might not be able to see yet. So feel free to reach out if that's of interest to you. All right. I love all the comments. Thank you guys for all the participation here. Carlos says, "I've always been a kind and giving person. That's my nature. It doesn't mean that I expect anything from anybody." I hear you. Yes, and if there's something that is not working, uh, there is a there is a place to get really curious and reflective about exactly what that might be, because the thing is we are the common denominator across all of our experience. We are the common denominator across all of our relationship, and I take on the stance of just being fully responsible for what we're creating. Uh, I take on the stance that I'm fully 100% responsible for all my relationships. And so if there is a pattern that I'm seeing across people, uh, I can say that the problem's out there, when where how I take my power back is realizing that there's a way in which I am consenting to allowing and showing up that may actually be drawing out and creating the same situation again and again. And that is the first step of moving into awareness and empowerment. And it's humbling, and it can be very triggering and challenging. And then Jonathan says, I think intent is everything. Being nice is great when it's sincere, not with the expectation of an outcome. No covert contracts. Be nice when it feels right. And don't be afraid to advocate for you. Beautifully said. And Jonathan is, him and I have had some wonderful conversations. Fantastic soul right there. He's got an awesome YouTube channel as well. Very artistic. Check it out. And then Sharon, hi. Thanks for stopping by and saying what's going on. And then Monica, you're welcome. Thank you. And then Sophie asks, what if someone is dependent and the other person says no? Is that cruel? Um, hmm. It really depends on the context. Um, and it depends on what they're saying no to. It's very difficult to answer that question because, uh, it's a if we're talking about a child that wants candy, and the mom says no, you can't have candy because it's not good for your health. Is that cruel? No. In some ways, that's incredibly kind and loving. Um, if a child is starving and needs nutrients and they're dependent and the parent says no, uh, yeah, I mean that can borderline into the realm of cruel. But I mean these are like exceptions to the rule here. Um, I would, if I'm going to get to the essence of what you might be asking here, is saying no to another person uh, cruel? I would be very curious as when you talk about the dependency, like how are we defining dependency? What are the things that one person is showing up that have you believe that they are dependent on the other person? Or are they truly dependent on the other person? Yeah, depend on life. You're saying depend on life. Yeah, I would need some more context about this. I mean, um, it's an interesting question, but general rule of thumb, I think that uh, if if there hasn't been some type of agreement in place around this dependency and taking care of, uh, but rather there's just suddenly a dependency that arises and the other person hasn't uh, there hasn't been consensual agreement around this. I would like to say that people have a complete and total right to stand in their no, because if they're not honoring themselves, the relationship is going to have a expiration date on it. Because the thing is, if you cannot say no in a relationship, it is what begins to bring and create a territory for resentment to occur. Okay. Well, listen, we're all hitting 45 minutes here, and I'm just reading through your comments. So thank you for all of the participation in this. It seems like this one really landed with a lot of you. And if there is any additional questions or support that you would like in this journey that you're currently on, I'm happy to uh, talk with you in more detail. I work with people one on one. This is my full time uh, work of my heart. I love the coaching world and helping people unlock more freedom because it's not only a contribution to them, but it's a contribution to myself to be engaged in these dialogues. Um, and I did see another question come up here. Let's see. Question: have you ever been Mr. Nice, Clayton? Yeah, absolutely. I sure have. Yeah, in my younger day. And it is something that one, uh, depending on the context, it can come out, and it's something to be aware of and to navigate and to continually look at where the motivation for my actions are occurring, and to trim out the weeds and the fear from my system. But that is an active process. It's a growing process, and it's an active process. It's not something that's static. That's a one and done. It takes continued attention, and it's a practice of living. All right. Well, thank you all for joining. We're about 45 minutes in here. Uh, and if y'all enjoyed this and want me to do more lives, uh, I'm happy to take that into consideration depending on the interest and bring everybody more into the kind of rough draft creation of some of this content that will go out a little bit later and more polished. So if that's something that you're wanting, please say yes and either drop a comment below or let me know in one way, shape, or form. So uh, thanks again. We'll keep the conversation going, and we'll talk to you guys all again soon. Thanks.